The phrase, "Let's go Brandon," has been a viral internet sensation over the past couple of weeks, inspiring memes and even a song that hit #1 on the iTunes hip hop chart. In fact, as of yesterday, both of the top songs on the iTunes chart were called "Let's Go Brandon." And in case you've missed it in Tony's comments earlier this week, the trending phrase originated from an NBC reporter's interview with NASCAR driver Brandon Brown following his victory at Alabama's Talladega Superspeedway earlier this month. During the interview, the crowd was chanting, well, something unsavory directed toward President Biden. But the reporter either misheard the chants or made an on-the-fly editorial change when she realized what was being said. We can't play what the crowd was chanting, but here's an edited version of the clip that launched 1,000 memes.
Oh my God, such an unbelievable moment.
Brandon, you also told me you can hear the chants from the crowd. Let's go, Brandon.
They weren't saying, "Let's go, Brandon." But how should we as Christians be thinking about this trend, and how should we be responding? Joining me now to talk about this and more is David Closson, director of the Center for Biblical Worldview at Family Research Council. David, welcome back. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Great to be with you, Joseph.
Well, let's go, Brandon. Tony did talk about it a little bit this week. He shared some of his thoughts. It's the worldview segment. I think it's appropriate that we talk about this. We don't have to mention it. I'm going to assume most of our audience knows what "Let's Go Brandon" is. "Let's Go Brandon" is a euphemism for now. How should Christians be thinking about this?
Yeah, it's an important question, Joseph, because this has been going on now, I think, for a couple of weeks now. And, I'm on social media and Twitter and Instagram, and you've seen it, and people are making humorous jokes about it. And then it broke out into football stadiums, especially kind of in the South, whole tens of thousands of people chanting this phrase. And at first, I think my first reaction, that's kind of humorous, that's kind of silly. But the more I thought about it, I did have some problems with it. I think, FRC President Tony Perkins mentioned this earlier in the week on the show, but this is emblematic, I think, of a coarsening of our political discourse, disrespect towards those who are in leadership, and as Christians, as those who Paul tells us in 1 Timothy 2 to be praying for our leaders, to be seeking their welfare, because if our leaders are doing well, we'll find welfare we should seek. To be able to live peaceably among men. I do think this is problematic, and even if some people might kind of smile and laugh at this, I don't think this is something that Christians should participate in.
In the Sermon on the Mount, one of the very specific commands that Jesus gives us is to bless those who curse you. And I think it is difficult to dispute that what is happening in "Let's Go Brandon" is not an example of blessing anyone, much less those who curse you. Does that settle the matter for you?
I think that is a really important point, Joseph. Yeah, don't curse those who curse you, bless those. I know conservatives who around this country, a lot of Christians have issues with policies that the Biden administration has put forward. But again, just because we disagree with someone's policies and proposals doesn't mean we need to go after their character and kind of descend to that level of coarseness. And, Joseph, I know people will say, well, Donald Trump was one who was coarsening our political discourse. And it's true. President Trump said things that I wish he wouldn't have said. Obviously, Joe Biden himself's no, paragon of civil discourse. But I just don't think Christians should be participating. Let's not lower the bar. Let's try to raise it and meet that standard. I think that you just rightly pointed out that Jesus sets for us in the Sermon on the Mount.
And I think it is bad for us culturally if we have this habit, and I think it has become a habit partisanly. Whoever is not in power in the White House shows an incredible amount of disrespect and disregard for the person that they did not vote for who occupies that office. And I'm not sure it serves anyone well if the Democrats are just nasty and brutal to the Republicans, and then when the Democrats get in office, the Republicans are nasty and brutal to the Democrat who happens to sit that in that office. Part of our nation's unity and our ability to survive really does depend in many respects on our ability to respect the office of the presidency because of the critical role that it plays. Do you think that we have the ability to influence that by the way we talk and think about who's in the office?
I think we can, Joseph, and I think that Christians ought to model that. I think we can actually, I'm just thinking about, we can model that in our own families. We can model that in our churches. How often have you been to church and you've heard maybe someone say an unkind word about the pastor after a sermon, or a Sunday school teacher, or an elder? I think even in our own churches and our own families, we can begin modeling what it looks like to speak respectfully about those who God has put in positions of authority. And you and I have talked about this passage before on the show, Joseph, but Romans 13, says that government, our leaders, they're ordained, they're put into place by God, and that's a good thing. So Christians, the posture it doesn't mean we agree with every policy decision that those in authority are going to make. The current administration, there's a whole host of things that we can disagree with. But I think that as Christians, the first thing we should be saying about something like this is that we should give honor to whom honor is due. And even if you don't agree with who's in the Oval Office, honor is due that person.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point. The temptation in our public policy is to make our policy difference very personal. And I think this is one piece of evidence that suggests that it becomes personal with those we disagree. So we are willing to chant things repeatedly that really are profane and inappropriate. And we certainly wouldn't want them said about ourselves or our mother or other people that we cared about. So we have to think about what we are saying and the broader message that is sending. But there's one other point I wanted to mention, David, before we get into another subject about this, because in addition to the theological conversation that I think is important for Christians to think about first, of course, is how should we don't just follow cultural trends, but it is important to note a cultural trend when it happens, because I think this cultural trend could have significant political impact for one very specific reason. And that is that part of the narrative, perception in politics often is reality. And one thing that has always been a goal of the left is to have a caricature of the right. That is, when you think of a Republican or a conservative, they want you to immediately think of Donald Trump or Mitch McConnell or some other old white guy. That's kind of their perception. But these songs, both called Let's Go Brandon, are rap songs rapped by not white people. They are at the top of the charts. That says something about who is listening to the music, and it also is going to it's going to change the perception of who it is that's criticizing the president, who it is that is the face of conservative messaging. Like it or not, whether it's appropriate or not, this is a right-wing movement. This is a right-wing perspective, this Let's Go Brandon phenomenon. And the fact that it is coming not from old white guys, but from young black guys who are rappers, psychologically, I think is going to make a difference in the way that this lands with people, particularly young people, because I think it is going to change, not necessarily intentionally. And I don't think this is why these songs were written. I just think this is the way that culture works, and the way that art and entertainment and media influences culture is they are hearing this message, not from a press release, not from a politician in a suit and tie, but from an R&B artist. Do you agree that this is going to impact the way people think about this message?
No, I think so. And I think that's kind of perceptive to even note that, Joseph, because I think you're right that this is kind of a cultural movement. We're seeing this being chanted in football stadiums and at NASCAR races. But you're like you just mentioned, these two songs that have skyrocketed up the charts. I think you said they're number 1 and 2 right now on the iTunes top 100 or whatever the list is. It speaks to the fact that this is a cultural movement. And I think it also, Joseph, and we'll probably get into this in the next part of the segment, it speaks to this growing unpopularity to the policies of this administration. It's not just old white people who are upset at some of these policies. There's a growing groundswell of people who are upset upset at policies that this administration is beginning, that has been pursuing now since they took office. And I think that discontentment that we're seeing about these policies is now manifesting itself in some of the cultural messaging like you find in now these popular rap songs.
Now, David, I'm going to switch topics, kind of, but I don't think entirely, because I want to talk about some other messaging that's happening culturally and the worldview implications of this. The White House this week released a cartoon story advertising campaign promoting the Build Back Better plan. And it features the life of Linda. And I want to go through what this is, because it really starts, it's this cradle to grave concept of Linda. And really, I think the worldview part of this is it paints a picture of what the good life is, what the White House thinks the good life should be for Americans. And it starts at the very beginning, and it shows Linda appears to be working in some kind of a warehouse. And Linda is a working mother in Peoria, Illinois. She works at a local manufacturing facility. She makes $40,000 a year. She's pregnant with her son, Leo. Then the life of Linda proceeds. She has Leo. Once Leo is born, Linda receives a child tax credit of $300 per month, which is $3,600 annually, to help cover essential costs like groceries, rent, and medicine. Then we move on. Leo is growing up, and the campaign says, as Leo grows up, the government helps cover the costs for his daycare, guaranteeing that Linda doesn't need to pay more than 7% of her income on child care. Now, Leo continues to grow. When Leo turns 3, he attends a high-quality pre-K program for free. Why? Because Build Back Better is paying for it. Of course, that's what they want us all to believe. Yep. But Leo continues to grow, as does his mother. And when Leo leaves high school, he is able to enroll. And of course, we're assuming a lifetime in public education that he's just completed. When he leaves high school, he is able to enroll in a community college, thanks to extended Pell Grants and investments in community colleges. We move on, and Leo gets a job. Thanks to his community college training, Leo lands a good-paying job, a good-paying union job, the emphasis is there, as a wind turbine technician. Leo's job is one of 4 million new jobs a year that are supported by President Biden's economic plan. And then finally, we get to the end of the life of Linda. And later in life, Linda needs home care, and it says hearing care, but I think they mean health care. Thanks to President Biden's plan, Linda can access affordable hearing care. I also think it still means health care through Medicare. And Leo is able to afford at-home elder care for his mom. So we see here this beautiful life of Linda that Joe Biden and the Build Back Better plan have created for Linda, which begins with child tax credits when Leo is born and ends with government subsidized elder care for Linda as Leo is an adult. What do you learn from this?
Well, I think you learn a couple of things, but one, Joseph, you learned that I think someone in the White House a couple of weeks ago said, hey, do you remember that President Obama 9 years ago had a similar idea that some people watching us might remember, the life of Julia, which was a similar idea of this single mother who raises her kid, depends on government assistance every point of the way. They were doing this in support of Obamacare. This is the exact same thing with the life of Linda. Every step of her life, she needs the government. She's dependent on programs. She's dependent on handouts. Noticeably absent from this conception of the good life is a father figure, a husband. There's no male figure at all. There's no church. There's no community support. It's just at every step of her life, Linda has the government. So it's really this collectivist worldview that I think is the message you get from the life of Linda.
And that's one of many that I think it's important to drive home, is as the Biden administration encourages people to think about what they can do for their life. Linda has no husband, Leo has no father, and this is supposed to be an idyllic understanding of what life should be like. And in reality, it's a huge hole in Leo's life, and Linda needs her son to have a father. But their vision of life is absent a father. Is it wrong for Christians to take government support?
No, I don't think it's wrong, Joseph. I think there's certain supports that is helpful, that's needed depending on circumstances. But I think that the Build Back Better plan, as pictured by the life of Linda, the kind of the liberal utopia that it's painting for us is one of complete dependency on the government that undermines rights, it undermines liberties that I think too many Americans are taking for granted, which is why a picture like this might be compelling to a lot of our friends and neighbors.
I've seen, or I've read parodies of the 23rd Psalm, which starts with, not the Lord is my shepherd, but the government is my shepherd, I shall not want. Yeah. And of course, there's nothing wrong with communities helping each other and governments doing that as well. What is wrong and what is damaging, and what I think we need to underscore in terms of the worldview here, is that there is a movement in the world and certainly in the country that wants you to depend entirely upon the government for the good life. And Christians should know and must understand that that will inevitably disappointing. The government is not our shepherd. The Lord is our shepherd. If we look to government to be our shepherd, we will be disappointed. David Closson, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Joseph.